Well, thanks for having me. My name is Dawn Adjei. I'm a psychotherapist and life coach, and I'm here to talk to you guys about depression in men, which I'm calling this silent killer. I have a PowerPoint if you wanted to start it,
Yes.
Uncle Mike. Um, well, one of the reason why I was so interested in being here today is because like I noticed that when I'm dealing with my male clients, the sessions typically tend to go to the same. Like they start off, come in, like, hey, John, how you doing today? Oh, I'm good. Everything's good. Everything's good. And it takes about a half an hour before the stuff starts coming out. And I became very curious about that. And so in my research, oh yeah, here we go. The first slide talks about mental illness and depression in particular in African American people, in particular men. I won't go through the whole thing, but if you look right around here, the seventh stat shows that African American men are 4 times likely to to commit suicide due to depression over any other group. And that was striking to me, and I became even more curious about that. And it seemed to me when I was doing my research that it was linked to this idea of toxic masculinity, like men have to be strong, and the idea of depression not even being called depression. And so I just wanted to talk to you guys more about that, and to see, like why you guys think that is. I guess we can talk about that in the Q&A session. So if we go to the next slide, um, that basically, it just says that that depression goes undiagnosed in African American men, and that African American men tend to underutilize mental health services. So again, made me feel curious about, why that is. So we'll come back to that. Let's see here. How depression shows up in men is most commonly anger, um, drinking, drug abuse, gambling, and other risky behaviors, excessive sex, or anything else that would be considered risky. Usually, things that these things are masked, like they mask the feelings of sadness. So it's hard to really identify the actual depression. Next slide. Um, so here's the unhealthy coping mechanisms. Oh, I hear an echo. Do you hear that? Hello?
Yes. I think we had to mute someone.
Oh, okay. Um, and so here's some unhealthy coping mechanisms: self-medicating, drugs and alcohol, sex, clubbing, fighting, overeating. I don't want to you know, repeat it, but basically that's what depression can show up as. Not the typical definition of depression, being sad and moody and all those things. Um, Vulnerability. Now, vulnerability tends to be what I feel prevents, men in particular from feeling whatever, this sadness. Um, I use this a lot in practice, saying, you are as sick as your secrets, and that's something that's used a lot in AA. As long as you keep your feelings to yourself, you remain sick or depressed or sad, or you're not able to experience the level of happiness that I feel like is our God-given right. Uh, and so I like to look at vulnerability being a strength, and in that being able to acknowledge your feelings, mastering your feelings as opposed to masking them, which is what people tend to do, just because it's more comfortable to hide behind a quote unquote stronger emotion. Um, and in being vulnerable, you can acknowledge your feelings, getting to the source, the root of your upset, to sort of massage the kinks. And I use the analogy to massage the kinks in therapy, like thinking about physical therapy. Because when you go to physical therapy, you know, you kind of got to get to the, to rebuild the muscle, and the heart is a muscle. So it's sort of the same thing, you know, in my eyes. And then, you know, masking emotions versus mastering emotions, which to me is, masking emotions can appear as a strength. Um, but, you know, mastering emotions, I feel like takes more courage. And so that's just, you know, my 2 cents in there in that aspect. We can go to the next slide. So then here we come to therapy. You know, therapy has sort of been this taboo word. You know, whenever it's like, you know, therapy comes up, it gets really quiet and uncomfortable, like, because no one needs a therapist, you know, because, you know, how is somebody going to tell me how to live my life? Or how is somebody going to, you know, help me get past this pain when they don't know me? They don't know what I'm going through. So I think it's important just to understand what a therapist is. You know, a therapist is not someone that is the expert on you. You are the expert on you. You know, a therapist's job is just to sit and listen and reflect whatever they hear you saying, and to provide insight. Um, so yeah, again, so I have, you know, you don't have the answers. Um, you have the answers, but sometimes we don't ask ourselves those hard questions because the brain's, you know, design is to keep itself comfortable. And so you might not ask yourself a question that's going to make you stray too much from your comfort zone, you know, because we have this homeostasis that keeps us safe. So that's important to know. Um, I think it's also important, if you are going to enter a therapeutic relationship, to be informed, an informed client, you know, knowing that just because, let's, you know, you go into a clinic and they throw a therapist at you, you know, that you just sit there and you're like, you know, you're sort of, and you're powerless in that relationship. I think it's important to acknowledge your power as the client, as the master of yourself, and to be informed on what method or methodology the client, the therapist is employing. Um, so there are different forms of therapy. There are many different forms, that I was just going to mention 3 that I think are most common. CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, is the most common, which is basically helping you change your behaviors to then change your thoughts, to then, you know, to then create lasting change. And that's usually what a lot of, you know, clinicians use. Psychoanalysis, which the brother mentioned earlier, you know, where you know, the old school Freudian technique where you kind of sit back and talk, and then the, you know, the therapist psychoanalyzes you, which is not really that common anymore. You know, that's old. But psychoanalysis still has there's still some influence in the way that some people practice, just being able to know that, you know, that your past sort of influences your future. And so you talk about the past a lot. And narrative therapy, which I'm a fan of, because it's, you know, it's very strength based, and it's client based, where you sort of tell your story. And I love to like sit and talk to clients about their story, because that's where the power is. I feel like the power is in you telling your story aloud, to sort of see where things kind of like went awry. I like to use the analogy of driving on a freeway, which I'm sure we're all familiar with. You drive on the freeway and you miss your exit, and you're like, damn, you know, I missed the exit. But all you know, you kind of got, you get to the next exit, turn around and get back on, and you know, then you're sort of still on your journey. And so I like to use that a lot, because it's just like that. Sometimes we get lost, we lose it, you know, we need to find our way, get back on, boom, and now we heading down, you know, get to hit 75 again. So yeah, what is your story? And I think that it's important to really know your story and share your story, to find value in your story. Yeah, so we can continue. Oh, also, let me talk a little bit more about therapy. That it's not, you know, it's not a race. You know, I don't know. You know, you think, I'm going to find a therapist and in 1 month I'm healed. No, it doesn't, it doesn't work like that. It's the same way as physical therapy. It takes some time to rebuild that muscle. So I would encourage you, if you were thinking about therapy, just to give it time. It may take several, one or two or three therapists. And it's definitely going to be a process, but I'm here to advocate and say that therapy does work. And from my own personal experience, because I'm a therapist, so I'm like, okay, I don't need a therapy. I've done the studies. I studied psychology for over 12 years, and I went through a situation where I lost my mother. She passed away, and I was going through some other personal stuff, and went into a therapist, and he had the nerve to tell me that I was depressed, and I'm like, what? And I mean, it hit me, but in that work, I was able to gain more appreciation for the art of therapy, being able just to talk about what I was experiencing and have it being reflected back to me, and all the other interventions. So I'm just saying, in short, I only have a couple of minutes, but it really, like, I'm an advocate for therapy because it really does work. And it's not so relevant, like, who the therapist is. um, and I say that very lightly. I mean, obviously you want to have chemistry with the therapist that you choose, but the therapist, is doesn't have to look like you, doesn't have to have the same life experience in order to relate to you. All they have to do is be willing to see the world through your eyes. And that's what therapists are trained to do. That's what a good therapist is trained to do. So I want to kind of like dispel that myth that, oh, the therapist is not a man or a woman or black or white or Asian. They can't relate to what I'm going through. A good therapist is going to be able to really, like I said, again, see the world through your eyes. So um, that's my spiel on therapy. Like I said, we can go more into that into the question and answer session. And so some people are like, you know what, therapy's not for me. I'm not ready. So here are some things, some alternatives to therapy: socializing. Number one, because when we're feeling depressed or we're going through our stuff, the number one thing you want to do is isolate. You don't be bothered. I don't want to answer my phone. I don't want to talk to nobody. Nobody gets it. But there's something I learned in graduate school is he who socializes actualizes. Like, as much as you don't want to, like, it's probably the most healthiest thing for you to do, just to get out of yourself a little bit. It works wonders for therapy. Exercise. Oh, I spelled exercising wrong. Oh Lord, spell check. Anyway, so that's just exercising. Exercising, so important for us. Like, again, something that we don't feel like doing when you're not feeling good, your body doesn't, you don't want to move, but moving your body makes a world of a difference. Eating healthy, yes, even though it's like comfort eating, you want to get that, that fried chicken, or you want to get those chips or whatever. Yeah, but what we put in our body really makes a difference. Healthy foods, healthy body, healthy mind. It's just the way that it is. Creativity, anything creative, drawing, writing, whatever you're into that's creative, because you get to use, the other side of your brain, and it helps. Sleep hygiene, so important. I don't have to say much about that. You sleep well, you feel better, you feel better, you think better, you feel better. It's like a cycle. Hobbying, meditation, deep breathing. And I wanted to put in there prayer. I don't know why I don't have that in there. So, oh, okay, I have surrender, pray. Anyway, but meditation, we're just taking a minute, just sitting back, meditating. A lot of people say, meditating is not for me. I can't do it. When I close my eyes, I keep thinking. What I say to that is, like, the brain's function is to think. So you're gonna think. The idea of meditation is just to be able to slow down the thinking and to be able just to, like, leave space in between the thinking. So there are many techniques for that as well. So if you need any resources, I'll be happy to share them with Uncle Mike to help, because meditation really, like I can vouch for that as well. It really helps with concentration, with depression, with a myriad of things. Um, Paying attention to your thoughts, like, okay, I feel crappy today. Maybe think for a second, why do I feel this way? A lot of the time we just kind of, like, kind of cover it up with stuff. And it's important to acknowledge why you're feeling that way. Because, you know, although feelings are not facts, feelings are give your body information. Okay. Surrender, pray, relinquish control, learn your triggers. Very, very, very important. I mean, you know, even if you're not a religious person, just being able to surrender, because some things, you know, we just can't control. You know, there's just things in life we just can't, no matter what. And just to be able to know that, you know, you can surrender your feeling in the moment, even like, okay, I don't have to think about this right now. I don't, this is out of my control. You can just sort of let it go. Um, Keeping a routine. I added this one new because of the whole COVID thing. It's simple, you know, a lot of us have lost that routine when you don't have to get up and go to work and, you know, do the things the same way. Believe it or not, there's value in that. And our, you know, our bodies sort of crave that normalcy. Journaling, also really important to be able to get your thoughts out. Taking a walk, similar to exercising. When you move, if something happens in your brain, it just sort of like helps just get, you know, help clear your mind. Taking a class if you're interested. And the last but not least, therapy. Next slide. Next slide. Is that the last slide?
Yeah.
Oh, I think, okay. And okay. And then I have some resources. Okay, yes. There's a course called The Science of Happiness.
Somebody stole all the cup?
Huh?
No, someone we have to mute someone.
Oh, okay. The cups. All the cups. Okay. Yeah, so also I found a couple of resources for you guys. The Science of Happiness is a class, a course. I think it's 28 weeks. Yale University put it out, and just you know, to help deal with depression, and it shows you different things like that are linked to happiness. And what I found the most fascinating about that was, you know, I think it said that we up to 75,000. Like if you make $75,000, like money doesn't increase your happiness unless you once you get past $75,000. Like a lot of us think like if I win the lotto, I win $1 million, I'm gonna be happy, you know. But research shows that that doesn't, you know, that doesn't trump connection, and connection is probably the most single thing to that makes you happy. So, you know, I thought that was good. Another book, 50 Things to Do Before Seeing a Psychiatrist, for people who are not trying to see a therapist right now. There's like all these cool things you can do. And then I have a depression, overcoming depression workbook. And then of course the depression. 15 minutes? Oh, wow. Just about. I could keep going, but
Well,
that's
you know
about
what we could do, Dawn, if it's okay with you,
it. Mhm.
we want to hear more, but
Okay.
if we can open it up, if someone has something that they would like to say, and I'm sure that will actually generate even more conversations.
Okay. Cool.
So does anyone have any questions for Dawn? This has been most helpful. I love how practical it is. And, you know, it reinforced some things we've heard before, but I think just more informed makes it the narrative so much easier and the dialogue so much easier. You did a great job, really great job breaking it down for us. Does anyone have any questions for Dawn or any comments?
Yeah, I did have a question.
Joaquin, go right ahead, please.
Hi, Dawn. Thank you for sharing tonight. The information is valuable. I did have a question. You mentioned a good therapist, and
Mhm.
I want to know how someone who does not know too much about therapy in general can identify whether or not this particular therapist is a good therapist.
Okay, well, as I said, you're the expert, so it's about how you feel. Like if you know, you have to feel comfortable, number one. Um, and you know, and that's why I think it's important to give it at least 2 meetings, right? Because the first time it could just be like a little bit of just like discomfort, just you know, in a new situation. Um, and also I think that it's important to ask those tough questions. Like if you feel uncomfortable, like you know, in a session, I would tell the therapist. A good therapist is going to want to hear that. But you're making, you know, I feel a little uncomfortable about how I'm feeling right now. You know what I mean? Like I think because in therapy, like part of the work is the relationship, is being able to have a relationship with someone where you can express a different side of yourself. You know what I mean? Like a more vulnerable side, where you can say things that you wouldn't be able to say, where you can practice saying things that you're not able to say in quote unquote real life, and then be able to take that version of yourself and bring it into real life. So again, you are the expert. You should never feel uncomfortable, like, for an extended amount of time. Say, I ask my clients, like, oh, so how you feel right now? How'd that make you feel when I asked you that question? But not every therapist is as comfortable, you know what I mean? And so it's important to identify that pretty early, but not the first session. It takes about, one or two sessions, sort of like, when you meet a new friend. You kind of know in the beginning, like, oh, I'm not feeling this person. But there have been times where you give somebody a second shot and you're like, oh, okay, they're not that bad. So I say that.
Thank you.
I think we have a
Yeah.
question from Sam.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Sam, go ahead. Unmute yourself, please.
I just want to thank you because I just started therapy, and they asked me what kind of therapist that I wanted, and I said I wanted a good therapist. I didn't know like what kind of therapist there was, and I didn't know how to go about it. And when they gave me my therapist, it was a young white girl, and I was like, oh my God. But like you said, they see through your eyes, and I've been in 4 sessions with her, and things been working out really good. And it was a shock to me because somebody told me, give her a chance, she might be a good therapist. And anybody else that's looking, like she said, you really got to give them a chance. And I'm happy I gave the girl a chance.
Well, that's great to hear. Great.
Thanks, Sam.
I encourage you to just keep, just be honest, like, again, we stay sick because of our secrets. Anything you're feeling, say it. I feel, I don't know, I don't like the way you smell, whatever it is, like honesty is so important in therapy. So
Robert?
Oh yeah, I just want a quick question. You said pay attention to your thoughts. I missed that part of what you mean about that or whatever, because I might have a follow-up question. I don't know if you answered it or not.
I think I was talking about, just being aware of what you're thinking. Yeah. I just think I didn't really have I don't know. Basically what I'm saying is that you should be aware of why you feel a certain way. If you feel angry, okay, it's important to just try to get to the root of, why am I feeling like this right now? Become curious about what inspired your thought, as opposed to just covering it up automatically, or just thinking like, oh, I just woke up like this. We don't ever just wake up, like there's always information. I think I said that although feelings are not facts, that feelings are information. It's our body or brain giving us information about something that is not right. And it's important to acknowledge that, because, it's like, again, it's your rights, and we all have a right to a peace of mind. We all have a right to happiness. And I just, my wish for all of us and everyone is just to be able to access that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because my follow was you said like pay attention to your thoughts or whatever, but if you had people that's really, really depressed and stuff like that, and their thought is like, suicidal or put bodily harm on somebody else or whatever, you like pay attention to that, or they seek more into depression with that or whatever stuff, like trying to go about a different route.
Got it. I see what you're saying. So what you're saying is, if you're not thinking right, maybe it's not a good idea to pay attention to those thoughts.
Yeah.
So, okay, so then I would clarify to become curious about those thoughts, right? But then I don't think that it's a good idea to ruminate on a thought. Like, for example, you wake up like, I just want to kill somebody. I'm feeling homicidal. I think it's important. Okay, where's that coming from? Okay, like, as opposed to like, I just, ruminate on the thought, okay, where's that coming from? And then, thinking about it that way. But what you said also made me think about something else I think is also important to do that I didn't put in the list, is that, you know, where your thought goes is where your energy flows always. So whatever you're thinking about is what where your intention is probably what's gonna come up. So it's important to know that as well, right? If you're not having the best thought about, about a situation, then it is a good idea to focus on something else. But I do think that, wherever you go, there you are. So it's not going to disappear. That those feelings of, wanting to murder someone is not going. So I do think it's important to become curious about it. Like, what's this about? What do I really want? Because it's not that you really want to hurt someone. It's like, I want to feel better. And, yeah. So.
And I think that's where having someone else in your corner can really help you. Someone you trust, or even like you said, a therapist, where you
Right.
don't have to do it in isolation and do it alone.
Right.
Someone that will actually empower you to go in a positive direction.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
Tyrone,
Yeah,
Tyrone,
Tyrone.
Tyrone, and then Robert.
Hello, good evening. I was gonna I'm gonna use myself as an example. So I went to school to get my MSW, and during my internship, I had one of my clients get killed, and it triggered me so much that I ended up in Baltimore during the riots, like taking videos and things like that. And I thought that was going to be my therapy, but that took me even to a deeper point of like, because I'm looking at a lot of Black men that see things that go on, get angry, get triggered, and don't hit therapy. I'm a veteran, so I definitely have a therapist to help me through some of the frustration and anger. But it's still like, in the community, are there projects that you might be able to push that we could refer other people to work out their anger, or work out, because sometimes therapy is good, but therapy is best when coupled with something that you can use your energy to redirect.
Definitely. Definitely. Um, I'm not familiar of any programs like that. Um, but I agree. No, I agree that it should be coupled with community efforts. Um, I work with children these days and families, and so I'm aware of, like, youth organizations. But I think that you're right, that it is very important for people to, for collective communities to come together and, like,
Mm.
do and be physical with whatever,
With a
with
solution.
yeah,
So
yeah,
because when I look at having, just because of the time and where we are, when I look at having a white therapist, I still would be frustrated, like, yo, you really don't know what I'm talking about, because I'm still
right,
paying you to listen to me. And I might be telling you secrets that, so there is a paranoia that comes with a therapist. It is a partner, a friend. Like, one of my therapists, it's a female. And I was like, you know what, you in timeout for a minute. And I really, but it's a, like, it's a part where you know that sometimes you get off and you want to get right. So I do agree that therapy is good because it is a outside voice to reflect your story. So
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you, because I feel comfortable in this group. I do encourage, like, when I'm doing an intake, I do think in some cases it's beneficial to have a therapist that is, that's the same race, because there are some things that I feel we understand that maybe other races, like, don't, right? But the truth is that there's a shortage of of therapists, of African American therapists, and and really a shortage of African American male therapists. So it's hard to accommodate all of all of the therapists, but I think that if that's what you feel like you need, and because you are the expert, that it's okay to ask for that. And I think in some cases I think it works. But I also know that I've had both, and in some cases it's more beneficial to have a therapist that's willing to empathize and see the world through your eyes. you know, because I've had, like I said, I've been a white therapist, and some, you know, I had black therapists where I'm like, wait, you know, like this is not what I thought it was gonna be.
And that was, I think that was kind of like my statement with a female therapist,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes having a female therapist and having a wife, those stories don't transfer right. So having a male therapist will
Mm-hmm.
keep you focused. So that's why I had to fire my female therapist and
Right,
talk to my male therapist, because my perspective was chauvinistic. And you know,
right.
sometimes you have to look at the truth of, you know, what you bring into the situation. Too much information. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tyrone. Robert?
That's why those conversations
Yeah.
are important. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it's as simple as having that conversation. Like, this is how I'm feeling in this moment, in, you know, in this experience. And that can, even that conversation can, you know, can even shift the energy, because it's what's not spoken that's creating the block. Am I making sense?
He's muted.
You muted, Tyrone.
Oh yes, it makes sense. I was just having to clarify my too much information because my wife is sitting here with me.
Oh.
We're a good family. We're laughing
Mhm.
at, but yeah. So
Yeah, 'cause I mean, yeah. So like I said, I think that, you know, that conversation, you know, that the unspokenness is what creates the block. So sometimes being able just to address it in the room, like, yo, I don't feel like you understand because of this. Oh, okay. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
there's value in that. Like, the whole thing is therapeutic. That's what I find with my
definitely
clients. That's, you know, yeah.
very effective. Thank you.
I think from personal experience, what you were saying in terms of just finding a good therapist is probably the most sound. You know, like quite some time ago, I had visited, I had seen a therapist who was white, and something that I had shared with her, she just kind of dismissed as though it was a joke that was really going on. So I found that really condescending, and I sort of felt like, wow, if I looked different, you probably would have just accepted that as my truth. And then more recently, I took my daughter to a black therapist, and something quite significant happened one week, and then the next week I mentioned it, and she said, "I don't remember that." I was like, "What, are you serious?" Like it was last week. So all I had to say, like, my experience is that it doesn't matter. It's just you just have to find someone really good, and again, it's more in terms of my daughter, but she sees currently a older white therapist, and she's fantastic, and she's I love it. You know, like she's all for it, and she completely understands, and it had nothing to do with race or anything like that. She's just well educated.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ronald. All right, so we're going to go in this order. Some people are waiting their turn patiently.
Oh,
Don, you
sorry.
really got, that's all right, Donald. You really got us motivated here, as you can see. A lot of participation, which is really great. So Rob, Donald, and then Daryl. I think that order. Yeah.
Cool. I'll be super brief. The two comments, not even questions. I'm just this whole talk reminded me of like my first time starting therapy, and one thing I wasn't prepared for once I think it was like 2 sessions in, it brought up like all of the emotions and all the emotions of what I was in therapy for. Now, specifically like my relationship with my father. And I remember I got a phone call from him, and I just went ape on the phone, like just cursing, yelling, everything, because all of this stuff from therapy had been brought up and was now at the surface. And I remember both my wife and my mom were in the house at the same time, and they came out like, "Is everything okay?" Because they heard me just spazzing out in the living room. It was a good thing because it brought up so much stuff. So that just brought back a memory of like going into therapy, especially starting, can stir up a lot of these old emotions that have been suppressed for a while.
Yeah.
And the other thing I was going to say is I really appreciate, I think it was like your second slide where you shared about how depression can show up. Because for me personally, I've never thought I've been depressed because I've never had like these seasons of life where I sat on the couch just like weeping and eating ice cream. I know it sounds super immature, but like that's what I picture when I think of depression. But once you classified it like that, it could show up as anger, or just risky behavior, I was like, oh, there's been seasons of my life where that's been me. So yeah, just thank you for sharing that.
Right, because a lot of us won't allow ourselves to sit on a couch and cry, because it's not, it's just not in our makeup, but the feelings are still there. We just learn how to cover it up. And I also just want to, I know we have some more, but it's that process of you going off on your dad, like that's part of therapy, just because we bury a bone, right? It doesn't mean that it's not there. It's still there and it has to come up, and it's going to come up how it comes up. But it's, it's good that it comes up. So kudos.
Hey, Daryl or Donald? I forgot who's first. Hey, Donald, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. I wanted to kind of answer, put it out there because it was a conversation about where can you find a good therapist. And I think for a lot of men, Dawn alluded to this, and she said, it's for everybody who's sitting on a couch and crying, it's not easy, right? But an introduction to therapy for those who are not ready to have that big step and have the one-on-one could be group therapy in terms of group work with men, right? So there are different pieces around the country where Black men and men of color are getting together under the guise of a trained licensed clinician to really have those conversations and start. And from there, realizing that I'm not in this by myself. I do have this rush of feelings, emotions, experiences that other brothers are experiencing. And I can go and sit on that couch or that chair and have that one-on-one conversation. And it doesn't take away from my manhood. It doesn't take away from my masculinity. It doesn't detract from me, but it is a sense of strength. So as a suggestion for brothers who may not be ready to do the one-on-one, you can touch base with some local organizations, your NAACPs, or if you live near an HBCU, schools of social work, YMCAs around the country. They're forming these groups where men are coming together to just have the conversation, and it starts, right? So we're one. Real Dads Network is a conversation starter that gets us to come together, talk about our experiences as men, as fathers. And then from there, we recognize from time to time that I need a little bit more. I need some one-on-one. And then I can step out and find that place. So just put it out there that there's some other vehicles that can get us to the end result of dealing with the one-on-one individual therapy, which is possibly group work.
Yeah, it's a great resource.
That's great insight, Donald. Daryl, and then Ishmael.
Hey, what's up, Don?
Hey.
I wanted to ask, I have two questions, one for Dawn, and I wanted to chime in on what Tyrone mentioned in the beginning of his question. But for Dawn, is there a way to pre-screen a therapist, or a way to get like a background on, it's just like a preliminary screening, and just to know if that's a good person that you could feel comfortable, that one could feel comfortable with, that they are like, you work with kids, so if I need to have a conversation with a therapist pertaining to my kids, okay, is there a way, is there like a smart way to find out the background of the therapist? Because I know they give like a quick synopsis, but is there any other site or any other suggestions that you have?
Well, like I said earlier, I think that the best way is really that first, that first or second session, because, looking at someone's background doesn't necessarily, determine how they're going to work. It's a chemistry thing, and it's about their ability to see the world again through your eyes, to relate to your individual circumstance. Because I mean, yeah, like I work with children, but I've also have experience working with adults, and working with,
Right.
with geriatric patients. So again, it's important just to have that initial meeting, and just, seeing how you feel. As far as looking at credentials, I'm sure that you can like type in a license number and know where they went to school and know those things. But again, that's just data. The facts are in the actual interaction. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah, just the jumping on that again, because I remember my first child, went to therapy, and our therapist was this white woman. And the mother of my oldest son, she had 2 kids previously. And this woman just kind of, she went in on her in a way that made me feel uncomfortable. I felt like I wanted her to be less biased. So even though some of the things that she was saying, I was like, it was some of the things that we had discussed that, I felt like she was too much on my side. Like she kind of went beyond what I was thinking. So for me as a person who was the one seeking therapy, for us, I didn't feel, I was trying to figure out a way to find someone who was balanced, and that's just a huge obstacle to sit there and have those 2 or 3, have those 2 interviews and then not feel comfortable anymore, and then get that person who's reluctant to go to therapy to go to another one. So I was just wondering if there was another alternative, if there was an alternative to that.
Right. Well, again, like I said earlier, I think you're the expert on how you feel. I mean, I think there are some exceptions. If you come into a session and you're like, okay, you're triggered, and the person is like completely doesn't get you and they're biased, then you have the right to say, listen, I don't want to come here ever again. So it's hard to say, like, you can't, like, again, you can't really, there's no place you can go and say, look up, okay, is this a good therapist? It's really just chemistry and meeting. But
Right. And also,
it's okay to walk. I think it's okay to say, okay, I've had enough. If after 15 minutes, there are some instances where it's like, okay, I mean, I feel like you guys, you're the expert on how you feel.
So it sounds like what you're saying is just really, at the end of the day, is also commitment. But Tyrone, thank you, Tyrone. You mentioned something. I just want to throw this question out. You asked if there's any projects that that someone could be that could be recommended. And when you ask that question, I'm curious. From the point of view of someone who would be interested in curating, projects or something of the matter. What are some areas that the people that you've come in contact with that you were referencing in your question? What are some things that you think they would be interested in that would be helpful?
The most interesting thing happened to me yesterday. I went outside. Pause. I'm sorry. I went outside. I live in East New York. I went outside and met a Dread Rasta young man who lives across the street. It's the second time I met him. Last summer, he was wilding out and he was kicking people out of the house and yelling and going crazy in the street. But when I seen him yesterday, he was walking across the street with his sons, and I haven't seen him in a while. So I said, respect. I said, I'd like to see you with your kids. And then he said, let me buy you something. So I told him, no, let me buy you a beer. So I went to the store with him, and he started explaining, I don't really live there. I have this, he's a Caribbean guy. I have this American wife that we have 2 kids and we're trying to raise them in 2 different worlds. So I had to kick the junkies out of the house. I had to clean the rats up. And I said, oh, that's a different perspective. Because last year I thought, this dude is going bananas. So how do you refer a person who is fighting in the streets close to your home and say, these are some positive things you could do with your children? That garden, to me, a lot of people don't understand, but the garden to me is a place where the kids can go and learn about horticulture, can learn about the ecosystem. So myself personally, I set my own like little place for people to relax. So when I say what else is out there, I think it's like this Real Dads Network. I spoke to the young man about it. I think it's places to go and listen to other men, just like someone was referencing earlier, listen to other men and say, okay, there are many problems out there on different levels. What am I doing to be responsible? So, I know I don't have an answer, but I know I've been trying. So I wish I could have, wrote something and got a grant and employed kids who are not even going to school in this neighborhood. Kids like my son, for free, now is a mayor of a garden, and his friends are police officers, and some are construction workers, and some are architects. And we're planning on doing things, and that's only on my little level with no money, saying, let's create something. Like that's all I can do. So when I see as a veteran and as a man and as a real dad, and I have kids in Alaska who have like all kinds of different trajectories. I say, look at what I'm doing for your brother. Look at what I'm doing for your brother's friends and for your brother's brother. So it's like, how do you be your brother's keeper? So I wish I could come up with a tangible plan and say that this is it. All I'm doing is trying to put my feet in the water and not fry. Because, you know, in this neighborhood, there's gangs. In this neighborhood, there's shootings. I'm in East New York. I'm picking Avenue, around the corner, projects and everything. And I could leave. I can't leave right now, but I can use a VA loan and leave and say, oh, at least it's not my kids. That's not. It's not responsible at this time in our generational movements.
Tyrone, I
So
think
I don't know if
Robert
I
had a
don't know if I
question.
answered it.
I think
'Cause
so,
I don't know.
Tyrone. I just want to reflect on what Tyrone is saying. So many of the things that Dawn was telling us of alternative to therapy, things that can lift us up, that's exactly what I feel Tyrone is doing. You know, creativity, physical working in that garden. There's just socializing. I mean, so many of the things that Dawn mentioned is actually happening in that garden, Tyrone, that you have, that you're bringing kids into. So kudos to you.
Yeah, thank you. So I hope I answered it I hope I answered the question. I apologize.
Well, yeah, I mean, you did. You asked if they were prize, but so you know, I heard about your garden. I now got the face to the to the stories that I've been told.
Oh.
So I'm in Brooklyn too, and I've also been doing some things, you know, that have been inspired by just being from Brooklyn and also having a son, you know. So so yeah, I'm glad that I asked the question and I got the information and able to put the face with it. So I'll let you.
Thanks. I hope we get the link up because I think you will love it over here. We could do a project together.
My brother, Robert.
Oh yeah, real fast. Dawn, you said that you work with kids. What is the age range of kids you work with?
Right now I work with families at risk, so from anywhere from 6 to 18.
Okay.
Mhm.
Because my
Family therapist.
yeah, my follow-up question was do you see more, because you know you right now you with a real dad's networking a bunch of men. Do you see like more men now coming to you, or like women? Because normally when I thought of therapy, just women, they're mostly mentally, physically scarred, and they mostly do it. But to get a bodybuilder man that's all he known is to keep stuff inside or whatever, to be vulnerable to a totally stranger or whatever, we start to see it like an inkling go up a little bit more. But do you see that more often, or it's still like on a smaller side of stuff or the scale?
Well, prior to this job, I worked at a clinic, and so surprisingly, yes, I had a lot of male clients, and a lot of and they were I saw more and more male clients coming into therapy because and usually it got to the point where they were just like, look, and it showed up as anger, like I'm just so angry, and it's affecting my relationships, and that's usually when it got to the point where they were ready to talk. And again, a lot of, it would be very difficult to say that, I'm sad, or when, because, you have to give a diagnosis in order for insurance to pay. So when I see, I say, well, what do you think about, the fact that you're depressed? Again, it's like, nah, I'm just mad, I'm just tight, but it's the same thing. Like, it's just being, I do find a lot of men becoming more comfortable with therapy. And I think the more comfortable you are as a therapist in dealing with, with anger, and dealing with, with male clients, it's it's easier, because initially it was difficult for me. Like I said, sessions would be like, yo, yeah, how you doing? I'm good. Everything's good. How you doing? I'm like, okay, shit. So yeah.
And my last question real fast. I know you said you had to seek therapy and stuff like that. How do you do you switch it on and off or whatever? Because one of my good friend wives, she's a therapist, but I don't feel like, you like you say, like you don't do the psychoanalyze and stuff like that. But I feel like when I walk into the house, it's just a good friend, a good buddy, I never feel like she's observing me, or, I feel like her 9 to 5 is a 9 to 5. Once she leaves that'd be it or whatever. Does that affect you, like been meeting people or, you know, even somebody new or whatever? Because you, like you said again, you want to feel like you just talking to a good friend or like homies or whatever and stuff like that. Does not as switching on and off, does it bother you or anything?
Well, what I'm curious about is like, where do we get this idea that therapists psychoanalyze?
I just heard. So
No, I mean, I don't. It's so funny because I think that people probably think that more. You know, they think, okay, she's psychoanalyzed, but no, like we're human, like we're people. You know, we just studied psychology, and I mean, most of us study psychology. If we interact with people, you know, most of us can have intuition, and can see certain things. So, turning it off and on, you know, a good therapist again is able to empathize and see the world, and is curious about human behavior and curious about what makes people tick. And that's what I am. You know, I don't come and psychoanalyze. I'm curious, like, okay, I wonder why, you know, this is showing up this way. Or I wonder why you said that. So I'm really curious about why you think that you're being psychoanalyzed right now. And so a therapist, although we're not good friends, it's supposed to feel that way. You're supposed to feel comfortable enough to emulate the relationships, like I said, with, you know, between your therapist and at home. So if I feel comfortable telling my therapist, you know, I don't know, you know, I want to raise at work, or I feel undervalued at work, then we can practice that conversation with the person that needs to hear that. You know, or to tell my father, I feel like you're not, you know, that you don't value me or whatever. You know what I mean? So no, I don't feel like I have to turn it off and on. I do get that a lot though. People thinking like, oh, she's psychoanalyzing me. You know,
that's what I wanted to get to, because like as soon as somebody says something like, what is your profession? Like, I'm a therapist. Oh, right then and there, you know, the whole wall goes up. Like, I don't know about her. I ain't gonna talk to her, you know, stuff like that or whatever. But like I said again, my good friend, wife, man, like love her to death, and it just like I talk to her about any and everything, and she don't judge and nothing like that. Just like a, you know, somebody that's don't have a degree and didn't go to school with. That's how I feel about her or whatever. It comes with a title or stuff. But some people, when they hear that title attached to your name, you know, they act a little different or whatever, or they treat you a little bit different.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I don't think that's what therapy is at all. It's, you know, so no, I'm not psychoanalyzing anyone. I don't have any diagnosis. I think we're good here.
So David has something. David, you put something in the chat there. The main focus of therapy should not be what's wrong with you, what happened to you.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Yes.
Thank you. All right, we have some more hands up. I just want to get everyone who wants to say something opportunity. Kenyatta?
Sure. Quick few follow-ups. Jotted some things down. I've been in couples therapy and therapy, you know, one-on-one. I've had males and females. I prefer males. I've seen people who had their PhD, psychologists, and I've seen people that just had their masters. Also, the website, just Googling, and has a little brief thing of who they are, how long they've been working for. In regards to, I've actually dated a psychologist, but I knew her when she was an undergrad, when she got her BA in psychology, got her 3 years master's in psychology, and then got a PhD. So I seen her when she wasn't to who she became. And she used to tell me she used to have a lot of issues while dating because her ex-boyfriends were like, oh, why you always analyzing me? Why you always analyzing me? So this goes back to what the brother was saying to you, Dawn, in regards, I know you're not doing that now, but then, and I've dated her on and off since undergrad, you know, and I started noticing that in our relationship, right? Because I took a class in undergrad called Sociology of Work. And unfortunately, because of what you do for a living, sometimes people stereotype you. You know, I was in law enforcement. So sometimes people who were the weed smokers or this and that, oh, I ain't gonna hang with him because I smoke weed at this party. Me, everybody was legal, and it's legal now in New York, but I didn't care. Weed was always nothing to me. But people think you're a goody two-shoes in a sense of, oh, I'm not gonna do this or say this around him. If someone says I'm a lawyer or I'm a doctor, you're gonna look at them, oh, that person's bright, that person's smart. And it could work, it's a double standard if you're a therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist. Either they're gonna wanna tell you everything, right, whenever, even if you're personal friends, or they're gonna hold back and think, oh, she's gonna analyzing. So it just comes with the territory. Like with me being law enforcement, my spidey senses pick up if I'm out and about, if I see someone lingering around or look like they may try to break into a car, or they look like they may be trying to go rob the store. That just comes with the territory of your job. So you could have friends or family that you're talking to, and you're gonna sense, oh, these are the behaviors or traits of this, or schizophrenic, or whatever it may be. So so it works both ways when it comes to whatever type of work you do. You know what I mean? And they will talk to you, and that's basically what I had to say. But I prefer a male therapist, and it doesn't matter if they PhD or. I felt that the last guy I was dealing with, because he was a couple therapist / regular therapist. So I saw him with the woman I was seeing at the time, and then we also had separate sessions. And I just felt I related more to him, and he related more to me. And I'm not going to say he sided with me per se, but I felt he understood, what I was going through relationship wise, and I liked what he was saying to me. So that's all I had to say. But thank you for being here and for all your knowledge and wisdom.
Thank you for having me. That makes me think that, that I've had several different therapists, and I think that maybe it could it be that during certain seasons of your life that different therapists work better for you? Because I've had women therapists for, some seasons, and I've had male therapists, and it might just depend on what needs to be addressed. Sometimes you need a different type of perspective.
I'm not going to say it was the season per se. I just felt more at ease with them and more comfortable. Like if I wanted to say something, and not that I'm immature, uncomfortable to talk about sex with a woman therapist, but like I felt more comfortable talking to the gentleman.
Right.
I just felt more comfortable.
Okay.
I think also, at play, you can chime in on this. I just think also at play is just the social orientation. Kenyatta might just be more comfortable speaking with a dude, because you said you feel more comfortable, but you stated the reason why you felt comfortable talking to the male, but in comparison to a female, I'd be interested to hear what that is. But at the end of the day, I think it's also just a matter of social orientation. Like people are just accustomed to fulfilling the role of a male, fulfilling the role of a female as it's seen. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I just that just came to mind.
Puma wanted to share something.
Big Puma.
Hey guys. And Dawn, thanks a lot for being here. I appreciate you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, listen, I've never gone to a therapist before, but I'm starting to feel like I'm missing out on something now, honestly. I'm missing out on something. I'm missing something. I don't know. But I wanted to ask you two questions. The first one is, you said there's not a lot of Black male therapists. I think that the reason may be, actually, you think this is true, that coming up, it wasn't popular for Black people to go seek therapy. Why would I try to get a job as a therapist, have nobody to take care of? And the second question I have, you mentioned, I hear this all the time. If you can define it for me, I really appreciate it. How do you define this catchphrase everybody's using right now called toxic masculinity? Define that for me. I hear it all the time now.
Well, that's great. Well, because toxic masculinity is this idea that men have, the societal idea that men have to adhere to this level of strength that prevents them from being vulnerable. And it's toxic because, again, it doesn't allow a man to be quote unquote weak. So you have to be masculine. I don't know, maybe somebody else can chime in on it, but I mean, that's pretty much, what the way I see it. And when it relates to depression, and when it relates to seeking mental health services, again, it's this idea that, if you don't have it all together, then you're weak. If you're not holding everything down, then, you're not a man. And it just sort of puts men in this box of what masculinity is. And it's basically, and it's really a spectrum, you know?
Can I
So,
can I add, when I was in school, when you talk about therapists, and this is just my experience with other male Black therapists, I had a few classmates, they're social workers now, and when it came to therapy, there's a point of confrontation, right? There's a point of, you are who you are, this behavior is adjustable or maladjustable, or however you present it. It's easier for, I guess I got to think about how I say it, because my classmates were threatened. They were, and they were genuine people trying to confront people with their issues. So to get something, and maybe this is going to sound really ignorant, but when you look at a Black population and you say where was the father? If a person has father issues and they go and sit in front of a Black man and say, these are the things I'm going through, and he says, well, how did you do it to yourself? Who you are? Why because there could be like a countertransference of, I can't deal with the information you're giving to me, Black man. Don't talk to me like that. So it might be harder to hear another Black man tell you something versus if you had a relationship with your mom. And these are theories, so I'm not trying to say that this is it. I'm just saying that the experience that I had with other classmates, they were shook in certain parts of it. PhD, you could be a doctor, you could be a psychiatrist, but on the level of social work, that was military I worked for, and it was the same thing. He had more female clients that were willing to come in. And you say Black people don't go to therapy, but I worked in mental health for 10 years in the military, and Black folks were gone when we had a Black therapist. So it happens. But it's harder for a male therapist to take a authoritative, and it's not authoritative because therapy is a conversation, but it's harder to listen to something when a man says, and it might get you the wrong way. So that's just an observation that I theorize, I think.
So, Tyrone, you want me
Go
to?
ahead, Marcus.
Yeah, well, Marcus.
Marcus has been waiting for a while.
Well, yeah, I just had a really quick question to you, Dawn. You said you're a therapist and you've had quite a bit of experience as a therapist. And then you said also that you've had several therapists that you've seen. So, I mean, just on the surface level, I mean, don't get offended by this, but it just seems like you should know how to give yourself therapy and you don't need to. It seems. Nope. So I just wanted you to speak on that, just for me to understand, like what inner thoughts that you have of your education that you feel is something you need extra to get from someone else, basically.
Well, again, because it's this idea of homeostasis. We are designed to keep ourselves comfortable. It's the same way, like, you can go to the gym and lift, whatever. You can lift 20 pounds and get diesel, but the benefit of having a personal trainer is to push you past your comfort zone. So, and we have blind spots, all of us. So, I mean, no matter how much, how many books you've read. So again, I tried to be my own therapist. It just does not work. It's about asking, having someone else ask me the questions I'm not asking myself, and like being able to see those blind spots and pushing me past my comfort zone where I think I have it. So,
and just a follow-up question. I figured that's what you were going to say, and that definitely makes sense. But just a follow-up question: when you're doing therapy as a therapist, do you ever feel like they're not doing it right? Like, do you have like this thought in your head, like, that's not how I would have approached it? I mean, it just seems like it would be a weird dynamic being a therapist going to therapy.
No, definitely hard to find a therapist when you're a therapist yourself, because you got to be really good to be a therapist to a therapist, because we can see past a lot of the BS. But again, I'm at the point where I tell my therapist, like, yo, like, well, did you just yawn? I had therapists that would yawn. Bad therapists. I mean, I shouldn't even say that, but I've had some really therapists who really weren't like, I don't know. Cool challenge. I would leave that there.
I just want to piggyback on that, if you don't mind. I was very impressed with my therapist when she told me, she says, Mike, I have a therapist that only see therapists. So she has a therapist that only will see therapists. And there are therapists, she said, for therapists, because I would find myself reversing the role if I found someone that wasn't on a certain level or a certain type of therapist.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's very impressive when you know you have a therapist that's actually getting therapy, because they can even understand you better, to realize that we're all human, we're all broken. And like Dawn said so beautifully, we all have blind spots and we all look for that comfort zone. So I think that's—
Mike, let me just add.
What? Oh, I'm sorry, Derek.
Let me just add to it. In regards to therapy, the whole purpose of therapy is to strengthen you. So we're all not strong every day and all the time. So as a therapist, and you're saying, I'm not strong at this moment, I need help. So that is really being human, regardless of who you are. Sometimes we hold on to titles so much and we forget really we're people. So we talk about, toxic masculinity, we talk about the psychiatrist, you don't need help. We all need help. But the power is knowing when we need help and to get help.
Also, I was told, Dawn, and correct me if I'm wrong, any good therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, whichever, have a therapist, because you're taking in so much stuff yourself, of bad, negative, good, sorrow, sad, anger, that you need a place to let that out. And plus you got your personal life, whatever's going on. So just what Marcus was saying, that I think it's opposite. It's a good thing that your therapist have. And I think it would be something wrong if your therapist doesn't have a therapist, because where are you letting it out for yourself? Because you don't want to be going to your therapist and your therapist is just putting on that facade, but at the end of the day, they depressed. So how really can they help you or me, so to speak, help us if they're going through their stuff? So I met a guy, this is going back 20 years ago in a bar, a buddy of mine. He was working on his PhD to be a psychologist. And I was like, do you have a psychologist? He was like, absolutely. And I was like, why? I was like, Marcus, why? And then he explained that to me. He goes, all the stuff I'm going to hear, I need someone to speak to. Like, I get it. I understand. So,
right.
So hey, Dawn.
How can I sit across from you and talk about the benefits of therapy if I haven't gone through it myself? That's hypocritical. So
I know we're running out of time here, and I definitely want everyone to get their questions in. Donald, did you get to go?
Yeah, I actually wanted to jump on something that Tyrone had mentioned, in terms of talking about, sometimes male therapists aren't good or Black therapists aren't good or things of that sort. But Dawn had made a statement earlier that I think that definitely makes rehashing, is that there are different seasons in our life when we need different things. And, I do family practice with families, primarily with males. And there are times when I'm working with men and they need to see me, because I need to see someone who looks like them, who hears with them, connects with them. I work particularly around fathers, but there are times when they need somebody else who does something different, who looks different, who's coming from a different perspective. And I'm a firm believer that everybody needs therapy. I just say everybody needs therapy. I mean, and particularly us, right? Because realistically, Black men go through hell coming up in this country. The level of trauma and abuse that we deal with, and we think it's normal because it's our experience. But just something as simple as the whole conversation about what happens when a cop pulls one of us over and all the anxiety that we go through. That's something unique to us. And it's connected and tied to a whole series of events and activities that have happened our entire lives, right? Growing up in a female-headed household, because we don't think of fatherlessness as being traumatic, but it is traumatic. And it shapes our norms and our psyches to be able to think a certain way. And we grow up in experiences where we're not allowed to express ourselves because we're often told to shut up because that's just the way Black folk are, right? Our mama, shut up. You get beat, but shut up. So we internalize that we shouldn't always have a voice. So how many of us, when we get into a verbal altercation with the women in our lives, they start yelling or something like that, we just sit there and look at them because we've already been conditioned not to talk. That's some stuff that we need to work out, and therapy is an avenue for us to be able to deal with that. Therapy is an avenue, when I got to get on the train and go to work and I see a cop and I don't want to deal with a cop. I worked in child welfare, so we were dealing with kids who had been incarcerated, kids who had been taken away. So now I become a part of the system, and now I gotta be the person holding the Black boy in for something that I know was a result of some white cop locking him up. All that stuff. Now, and my self-worth about that, right? How do I handle that? Yeah. The fears of my children, when my sons go, and I have 5 boys, right? How do I handle that on a daily basis and still hold it together? While I'm trying to teach them to be men, I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate this life myself. So as I see the heads nodding, because everybody's connecting, that says that we all have stuff that we've had to deal with just being Black men in this country. And the avenue that we have not used because of culture, because of tradition, is therapy. And so I would strongly admonish every last one of us to get out there and find, and you may not make the first one, may not be a good touch, the second one might be a good touch, but talk to enough men and find out who's doing what and who's good with it. And you'll find someone to do it, because what we have to say is important. Someone needs to hear our story and help us to work through that and navigate through life. And the story that we've been told is that to be a man means you just suck it up and you hold on to it. But the ramifications of that is that we make up the largest population of people who commit suicide, right? So suicide, the largest group of suicides happen of men between the ages of 40 and 50, and we happen to be at the top of that list. Why is that? It's because we hold stuff inside and we don't know how to talk about it. In fact, you talk about anger and rage, it's actually a compilation of a bunch of emotions that come together that we haven't even learned how to navigate. So they all come together, we keep getting angry, we get mad, we get rage, and then we end up doing something violent, sometimes against ourselves, sometimes against the people we love, and it doesn't work for us. So I wanna just encourage us to continue to seek that out, because there is help for us, and we do have a voice, and someone should hear our stories because our stories are important. And even for the white therapists, I used to call them little white social worker ladies, for them, it's a part of their training too. Like Dawn says, she looks at her therapist and says, are you yawning when I'm talking, right? So that conversation of when I say something, I can turn and say, I don't really believe you heard what I just said. And then we have a different conversation, because now that therapist is being trained differently on how to deal with people who look like me. So when the next brother comes along, she may be better equipped, or he may be better equipped to be able to deal with that. And that's not to say that we're set to teach them something, but the more we are out there in our voice, the more the field is broadened to understand that Black male psychology is a different type of psychology, because we're coming from a different place, a different experience, and we need to be approached in a different manner. And so when we have that type of conversation, it's because there's enough of us out there saying, yo, I have a story, you need to hear it and understand, because once we get it right, we can help take care of those who are behind us.
Very good, Donald. We appreciate you. Thanks so much, such great insight. Dawn, we can't thank you enough for joining us this evening. As you see, you have sparked so much conversation, and it's just been amazing. We really appreciate it. How can we get in touch with you, keep in touch with you, if we want someone to use your services, please?
Well, yoursoulcoaching.com is my website. You can link me there. Don't pay attention to the prices, because I'm still working the prices out. Don't let the prices deter you. Just, reach out.
Can you put it in the chat, Dawn?
Oh, sure. There you go.
Yeah.
You got a family hookup price? No, we always look for that.
Yeah.
Uncle Mike, can I give her one last quick question?
Yes, please.
Dawn, on the serious side, I told you my title at the beginning, but on the serious side, I do feel left out in the situation, right? So if a client came to you and said, I think I want to experience therapy because everybody's doing it. So how would you say, I don't know why I'm here. Like, I want to see what therapy is about. How would you help somebody like that? Because I'm like, when do I know I need therapy? That's the question, really. When do I know I need therapy? That's the question.
When do you know you need therapy?
Yes.
Well, as Donald clearly stated, we all in need of therapy.
I got that.
So where would we start? I would just ask you to tell me your story, and it will come out. You know,
it will come out.
Your story.
It will come out. It will come out. Dawn, I want to say something that you said that is so powerful. You ran a parallel between having a physical trainer.
Mm-hmm.
I consider myself fit. I do a lot of hiking. I ran half marathons, 10K. Well, we had a physical trainer that came on, and I said, let me give the brother some business. I went there, and by the time he finished with me, I'm like, this is embarrassing. I didn't realize I was so out of shape. Mm-hmm. And it was humbling, but I've been going back ever since. I've been going for 6 months now, and it's amazing how you think you don't need something.
Right.
And there's others that can vouch, say what I'm saying is right on point. So I love that parallel that you gave between getting a physical trainer that can really get to the points that you don't even know where you need help. Right. And I love how you also made the parallel between the massage, massaging with the physical therapy. Yeah, that's a beautiful. I'm going to keep. Yeah.
And remember, the heart is a muscle. And when I think about that, because that was an aha moment for me too. The heart is a muscle, so it needs the same therapy as a whatever, I don't know, as a knee. Well, knee's not a muscle, but you know what I mean.
Sure. A bicep.
It needs a bicep. Thank you.
See that again, Puma?
Exactly. So it needs even more attention. So
yes.
let's not negate that, and let's just know that we all have. It's our God-given rights for peace of mind. It's and we can all access that. Really. That's
this has been wonderful. Thank you for
having me. This was fun.
Thank you so much.
I want to help you out, Puma.
Take care. Good luck.
I want to help you out, Puma.
And I also just want to, I want to just commend you as well, Mike, for this group. This is amazing. That the brothers get a chance to come together and talk it through. This is this is very therapeutic. So, kudos to you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for having me. Thank you for the laughs, and thank you for allowing me into your world. I am honored.
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Dawn. Thank you.
Take care.
Good night.
Oh, you could come back, Dawn, in like 6 months or something.
Okay. Let's talk to
23 months.
Mike.